Okay, hello, welcome everyone to flowConf. It's quite exciting to be a presenter. I've been at this conference, this is my third time actually, and one of the good things in being a presenter is that you get a little, like a gift basket, and in that gift basket you get a bottle of rakia. So for everyone that has some nerves, like myself, it's good that we have those. The title, $10,000, $30,000, $50,000, $100,000, same website, different conversation, as clickbaity as it gets, honestly, but that's sales. I mean, I hooked you in, it's a packed room, so let me get to my thing here. I hope everyone recognizes the meme. So I'm Tadija, some partners call me Tadija. Some of them call me Tadija. Sometimes I go by Ted, which is pretty cool. Maybe Ted is like a different persona, like someone who can help themselves at an open bar or something. So yeah, I've been at flowNinja for 2 years. Initially started at as a BDR, and that was quite fun. Don't recommend it to anyone. Graduated into an account executive role, and right now I handle the full cycle sales cycle and then account management afterwards, which means client relationships and so on and so forth. So before I go into the nitty-gritty of this kind of talk, I want to say that this presentation is actually targeted towards potentially two personas that exist in this room. One of them is a freelance designer, developer, someone that does some kind of service on their own and they just don't know how to put a pricing behind what they're actually doing. The second one is potentially someone from a broader team. Maybe you're an agency executive, maybe you're a founder, maybe you have a team that does sales or marketing and you don't really understand how to navigate the conversation into actually evaluating your business and actually saying, okay, this project that we're doing costs $50,000. So I hope we kind of got everything settled. And another thing, welcome. My name is Ted, this is my TED Talk. So in evaluating what we're actually going to be talking about, one important thing to note before I get into it is I will be talking about qualified leads only. So there won't be any conversations around, oh, how do I build my pipeline? How do I get more leads? How do I attract more customers? The idea is that we're talking about a conversation we're having with someone who's already in a way willing to buy. So if you're thinking about any kind of magic mystery things, how to grow your pipeline by 10x, I actually recommend the HeyReach. It's not a sponsor of this video. But yeah, aside from that, let me go into my talk. First thing, before we go into the nitty-gritty, I think it's quite important to understand how we qualify who we're talking about. So lesson number one is actually qualify early or disqualify early. And I know that a lot of us are not in a situation where we can actually reject business and we want to get this much work done to build our portfolio and everything. But generally at flowNinja, we have a couple of criteria which we based our qualification on. One of them is a standard thing. So we look at the company fit, we look at the use cases. I was talking with a friend of mine, haven't seen him in a couple of years and now I see him in flowConf and he says, yeah, well, we have a new website that is for our store. It has 10,000 items to be sold. It's an e-commerce functionality. And one of the first things that I told him is, yeah, that's a great solution for Shopify potentially. So whenever talking to partners, the best way to build trust is actually to tell them no if no is the best answer. But aside from the use case and the company fit, by company fit, I want you to think about where someone is coming from when you're talking to them. So in a lot of the situations at flowNinja, we had partners come in, potential partners come in at budgets of around $10, $12, $14, $15,000, and then we closed them at 30, 40, 50, not because we did some magic, but because we understood which ecosystem they come from and how that company is actually a viable fit for our solution. So company fit, use case, but very importantly, vibes. So I don't know if you can tell by this talk, but I'm a big proponent of vibes. So in general, just one thing to note here, if something feels off in the first like 30 minutes of a sales conversation, that partner will probably not be the best one to work with in the next 3 to 6 months. So a polite no and a polite conversation around, yeah, let's talk in a different time, or we're at full capacity right now, saves us from a couple of things. And those couple of things that it saves us from is it saves us from not get, or it enables us to get to the core understanding of our ICP in general. So Laura had a presentation earlier on the main stage. I absolutely love that woman, I adore her. And one of the things that she said we need to understand our own business in order to be able to sell to someone. So if we're doing projects just because they're coming in left and right, we will very rarely find out what we're actually good at and what we can do and how we can help our niche. So before kind of getting into the numbers, understand the company you're working with, understand the use case, be transparent, say no if that's the answer, and understand that vibes are a key proponent of everything. Moving on. Okay, the main part of the conversation. So what I'm actually going to do here, I'm going to talk about budget ranges or potential prospects that came in at FlowNinja at certain budget ranges, and what did we do actually to unlock those kinds of budgets. So the first budget range I'm talking about is the $10 to $30, $40, $50,000 mark. So what do we need to understand in order to actually sell to someone at this budget range? We need to have a couple of things set. One of them, or the first of them, is have a well-established sales process. So how do we establish a sales process if we don't have a huge pipeline? In general, what I think each and every one of you can do is you can look at your top 5 projects that you've done in the last 12 months. Those can be projects that were just a success. Maybe they weren't the most expensive ones. And then think about, like, what did all of these conversations have in common? How often did we reach out? How often did we talk? And what did we cover in those specific conversations to make these projects a success afterwards? So at FlowNinja, what we like to do is we have an introductory call, we have a strategy session, and then in about 14 to 20 days, every ideal client can be closed, even if it's an enterprise company or a mid-market company or a startup company. And why is that enabled? Because of call 1. So when we go into call 1, our main idea is just to get BANT. BANT is standard sales terminology: budget, authority, need, and timing. So how do we do that? One of the other things that I'm going to actually do during this talk is I'm going to connect with specific examples from some calls that I had in the past and how we unlock these kinds of conversations. So how do we just meet a person and then get them to talk about their, I don't know, childhood and upbringing? I mean, that's probably not going to get into BANT, but to make them comfortable and to actually get them talking. So what we do is we just jump in and we start with anything. We can start with just saying the ground with whatever is important to that person. And each and every question should actually be related more to the business rather than the specific use cases of the website. So one of the main things that we do is we don't talk about the website, we talk about the business. And how is that done? I think Miguel said that very interestingly on the main stage. We have a kind of keen curiosity about what people are doing in general. So if we're thinking about, okay, the website is a key part of your marketing funnel, but there are also like 10 things that you have to do, and the website is kind of making its way through all of that. That's what leads us to have a conversation with someone that leads to selling at, let's say, $10,000 to $30,000. Lesson number 2. So we have our prospect. They're as comfortable as they can be. I don't know how comfortable someone can be with me on a first call, but they're as comfortable as they can be. And we got them talking. They're talking about 60 to 70% of the time on the first call. We're asking a lot of questions that are specifically business related, not specifically outcome or website related. And now they're saying a bunch of stuff that we don't really maybe agree to. And how do we get someone to spend $30,000 if they want to spend $15,000? Well, we kind of implement ourselves as a consultant in that conversation. I was talking to a newly appointed CMO. She was quite a cool lady, and she transparently told me, this website project is my first deliverable at this company. So I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So what should we do? What should we do about that project? She told me, well, we need to scale up the website. We need 10 more pages. I need to be as autonomous as possible. And also the logo needs a little bit of work. So that leads us to lesson number 2 for the first part is you can object. Nobody wants to work with a plant that just agrees with everything that they say. So in a normal human conversation, if someone tells you something that you might not agree with, you can object to them. So I just told her, I don't think the logo is your biggest problem. And that was it. We completely derailed the conversation from the logo. We focused on what was actually her priority, and the deal was closed at, I think, 35. Okay. So we're graduating to higher numbers. So what did we understand by now? We understood that we should be a human. We understood that we should ask as many questions as we can. And we understood that we should have a well-established sales process. So not every sales process is a blueprint that you can just copy. I can just give you how we do things, as I said earlier, but look at what worked with your past clients and just put it into a process. Now we're talking with people that are from bigger companies than the ones that we talked about earlier. And in these conversations, a lot of the times, our champion can't really give us the amen for the $30,000, $40,000 website because they need to go through approvals. So in these kinds of situations, the part about learning the business is more important than ever. Why is it? Because in these conversations, we are not talking about our champion or with our champion anymore. We're talking with a CFO, we're talking with a board member, we might be talking to a CEO as well. So all of these people have their own goals about the website, but at the end of the day, when we close the laptop and then we're kind of out of it, they have a conversation that we're not a part of. So how do we make sure that we implement ourselves in that conversation and they're thinking like, oh yeah, I want to work with Flow Ninja because they did something or said something. We do that because we make our champion the hero. So even though we need to go through approvals and we need to talk with the board member, for example, we need to understand that we can have checkpoints with our champion as often as we want, just because they are the ones that are building the use case internally. What does that mean? That means that if this website project is a success, that champion might get promoted. And if that website project is not a success, that champion might get fired. So if we're talking with them kind of 24/7, putting them in the forefront of our conversation, we learn the business, we can actually graduate to these kinds of numbers. And I'm also going to showcase another practical example in this one. So about learning the business, I was talking with a board member from a travel company, and coming back to the band structure and just making everyone comfortable and just having a human conversation. In around 5 minutes of the call, he told me 2 things. One of them was our outbound CAC is 5,000 euros, our inbound CAC is 2,000 euros. Basically told me an information that I could actually close my laptop and finish the call right there. What does that mean? That means that we're also leaning into business even more. So outbound and inbound CAC has a lot to do with the website from a conversion standpoint, but in that conversation, a lot of us would say, okay, how do we want the homepage to look? How do we want these pages to be structured, and so on and so forth. Another thing that he told me was, I want our team to be a single-seat fighter jet, not a complicated bomber. Which is what, like jets? I mean, I don't know. I know nothing about jets, and I didn't even notice that part of the conversation until I went in the transcript. But what I did get from it is they're basically telling us their needs. They're telling us that they want to be efficient. They're telling us that they want to move fast, and they're telling us that they want to be as autonomous as possible. So yeah, with that conversation, we're making the champion our hero. We're doubling down on their needs. And we hope that this project is a success for their case as much as for ours. Moving on, senior buyers are testing your confidence, not your pitch. What does that mean? That means that in conversations, in the $50,000 to $100,000 conversation, the idea of objecting has a kind of different meaning to it, because we can't object to a CEO and we can't object to someone that's so higher up. They also have their own priorities, they have their own ego, and they have their own vision, but we can slow down, which is the exact opposite of what I'm doing in this talk, honestly. So slowing down, what does that mean? So that means that in a conversation where we're we're struck with multiple opinions. We're struck with 1,000 people's opinion. We're talking with the CEO, the board member. We're talking to a CMO and our champion. We have a tendency to go faster. And in a way, going faster actually blows the whole deal in this instance. So in a conversation that I had with a CEO, I was talking with his CMO about her 3 key pillars to marketing. So she was mentioning revenue operations, she was mentioning how marketing is connected to the website, and a bunch of other things. And at one point, the CEO jumps in the call and he says, I have 7 minutes in this call, give me everything that you got and let's see how we can work together. Which is quite a frightening ask, to be honest with you. I mean, each and every one of us would instinctively go into pitching harder, pitching faster, using the 7 minutes as much as we can, but actually we should do the exact opposite, and that's what we did. We slowed down, and I just basically repeated to him everything that the CMO told me about her 3 pillars of marketing. And that was it. We closed it the next day. Yeah, we all lose, so be yourself. So this is a bumper sticker. This is the main part of this talk, actually, that I want to focus on. And why is that? Is because when we're covering deals and when we're doing these conversations and when we're trying to win as much as we can, after every call and after every conversation, we ask ourselves, what can I do to actually win this deal? Which is a normal human reaction. But on the other hand, there are 1,000 things that can happen and we can always lose a deal. So one of the things that we can do every time is be ourselves completely, be the personality that we are, and mimic how their conversation and their relationship with us will actually be reflected in the project itself. So in this framework, the framework itself won't really save you from yourself, if that makes sense. So instead of finishing every call and asking yourself, okay, what can I do to win this call? Ask yourself, how am I actually going to lose this call? What's going to happen if I'm going to lose this? It's in a way a revelation, and it helps us understand that whatever we do, we can still lose a deal. And one of the other things that happened in my experience is I've never lost a deal because I was being myself and I was doing the thing that I thought was the most important for the partner. I did, though, lose a deal when I said this. I'd like to get something scheduled, but I'm not going to force anything by the end of this week. As you can already notice by my demeanor, this is not me. I mean, I'm going to force everything this week, you know. So I did something, and this was at a standpoint where I had 3 deals. I won 2. The third one was my favorite, actually, and they were these folks, and I was confident, and I was just not myself. I was confident in a way that was not reflecting of who I am in general. So I was doing some kind of professionalized version of how I think that person thinks, and we blew it and we lost the deal. So at this point of kind of being yourself, I want to show you now top 5 things you don't want to say on a sales call. Now I'm going to read these in a super serious voice, just so we can, I don't know, have some laughs. Number 1, I thought if you're in Europe, I'll just get on a plane and meet you wherever. Psycho alert. I actually closed that deal, I won it. Number 2, I've already done my sales homework and know everything about every single one of you. This is not the guy that tells you, yeah, let's connect next week. This is, once again, behavior that's not allowed, but still, we won the deal. Number 3, okay, it's just getting worse. Number 3, I'm going to get your WhatsApp. I have the CEO's number. I'm going to start texting you, start calling you, because I want this to be very successful. This is a Jehovah's Witness at your doorstep. Number 4, this one's my favorite. I'm going to be a little bit psycho-ish and work on everything on my end. Ladies and gentlemen, psycho-ish is not a word. Psycho-ish is what you say when you don't want to say psycho. So you say I'm psycho-adjacent. Like, I mean, I don't know what that means. In general, what's the conclusion of each and every one of these? I won each and every of these deals. Each and every one of these was won, and it wasn't one because I was doing a version of myself that just doesn't work. It was one because we were having a legitimate human conversation, and when you're talking with humans, you become a little psycho-ish. And when you're talking about website deliverables in a manner where we all want to win equally, then we're both psycho-ish. So in a way, just be yourself. And that leads us to kind of the conclusion of this talk, and that's the $100,000 plus conversation. Going back to one of our examples is I had a call with a pretty big private equity, and we did everything. So what did we do? We did bent, we listened, we approached it in a human way. We did it as a well-established sales process that makes it work at $10,000 and at $100,000. We objected to their opinions. I was basically seeing the guy on a call every single night at 11 p.m. Serbian time for 2 weeks. We got to the proposal. I sent over a $100,000 proposal, and he sent me an email. Let's bump this up a little bit. I want to give you guys the fidelity you need. So we closed it at $150,000. What's the point of that? We don't close deals because we're more likable, or even though we should be. We don't close deals because we're more likable, or because our services are 10 times better than someone else's, or because we have a magic formula, or I don't know, because we're prettier than they are and whatever works. We close deals because we're there. We're there from the beginning. We're invested in our results together, and we're just looking at the same outcome. And that's it. Thank you.